Okay, this is for a bushing. The bushing will be made out of a long galvanized bolt. I've already started turning the head down. I forgot the camcorder, so I stopped. Like I said in one of my previous video, I got the camcorder now, as you can see. And basically, this bushing is for the bolt that holds my collets in place on the Millhead on my Granite 1340. This is the actual rod right here that holds them, and basically I'm going to drill a hole through the center for this rod to slide through. That'll be a nice snug fit. This will hold the bushing at the top, and then I'm going to part it about 1 inch down, and I'm hoping that I can get this to where it's just snug enough, maybe a 1/1000th or 1,000th of an inch over, to where I can just tap it into where this rod goes through. That way this rod will have a nice, a better fit, and it won't wobble as much when I'm tightening it down. It's more for aesthetics, but I'm hoping in the long run it'll just be a minor improvement among others that I'm attempting to make. So let me put this away. I'll go ahead. I placed a mark with my Sharpie pen for the number 1 jaw, since I've already started turning. Now I'm turning this slow. Some people would turn it fast. I'm turning this slow. I am using a 1/4 inch carbide bit cutter because that's what I have. This is a hardened bolt, and the cutter's doing pretty good. I'm pretty much done. I'm going to do 1 or 2 more cuts. Then I'll clean the end of it up here, and I'll go ahead and I'll start boring about 1.5 inches down into it. I'll slide it out and clean the shaft, take the shaft down to size for the mill, and go ahead and see if we can't get this thing to work the way I would like to get it to work. So, here we go. Turn on the machine. And we're going to move in with the cutter until it touches. Zero my scale, come back out, and we'll do a couple of 5,000th cuts. Then I'll clean up this shoulder and this lip, change tools, and we'll clean this end up here. So a nice slow turn. Yes, it does wobble, I realize that. But we'll get that straightened out here shortly. And again, this is a bushing more for aesthetics than anything else. Put a little bit of oil on it. Should have done that a while ago. Adjust my cutter a little bit here. Touch it off again. Zero it. Come back out. Try a 5,000th cut and see how that does. I'm not using the power feed for this. I'm doing it by hand because it's so small of an area. Come back out. See if we can't do a small sponge cut here. Okay, we have a facing tool on there. Let's just go ahead and clean this small edge up right here. And then we'll start our boring operation. And then I can go ahead and turn the shaft down to size. So we'll touch this off. I'm going to call that 0. We'll do this by hand as well. While I'm here, leave that back. We'll grab a file. I'm going to use a bastard file on this. Just round it off a little bit. Round the top one off. Round the inside of the shoulder off a little bit. See how that looks right quick. Okay. And yes, I do have a handle on my file. I make my own handles. I have a small wood lathe. I use pieces of leftover pine. You can do the same thing if you want to on the metal lathe, even though I haven't tried it, and I'm not going to since I have my wood lathe. Your better handles, just take a small piece of pine, turn it down to the size it feels good in your hand. Get you a piece of copper pipe, 3/4 inch, 1 inch, and just make a small collar. And then turn the end of your file handle down just enough to where you have to tap this copper sleeve on there, the collar. And then you can drill your hole and you can tap your file in there afterwards. This will keep it nice and tight, and it'll also prevent your wood from splitting. And these are just leftover pieces of pine. You can use, I like to use 2x2s or larger. My hands are a little large. So anyway, back to this. We're going to go ahead and start the boring operation. So I'm going to stop the video and set up my drill. And we'll go ahead and use the tail stop to drill, starting with a small hole and just kind of working our way up to the proper size. So, alright, we'll get this out of the way. I am going to start this with a center drill. I'll start with a small drill, work my way up, so I'm probably not going to do the entire process on video. That depends on how carried away I get. But we'll go ahead and lock the tail stock. Put a little bit of thread cutting oil on there. I live in Hawaii, so I'm kind of limited at what I can get for cutting oils. I found this cutting oil for cutting threads, and it works pretty good. It's a pretty good general lubricant for cutting on the lathe. So here we go. Let me see if I can zoom in on this just a little bit. Maybe make it a little more interesting. I don't know if that's a good picture or not. And we'll go about halfway up the angle on the center drill. Back this out. Hang up my lubricating bottle there. And then we'll go ahead, turn that off, clean up the bit, put it away, and we'll get started on some drilling here. I'm going to move the camera. Hopefully I can get a little bit better shot. Okay, what I've done is I've moved my tripod up a little bit closer to the work. So let's see if we can't replace this center drill. And put that away. I'm going to zoom back for just a minute. Okay. And let's see if I can... There we go. There's the chuck. So, anyway, we'll go ahead. And then we're just going to step this up with different drills. Let me get a different container of oil here. Now I want to go about 1 inch in. We're actually going to drill in 1.5 inches. So I set my depth on the tailstock at 1/2 inch. That way if I go in 2 inches, I know I have 1.5 inches. Pick up some. And then we'll continue this process until we have the correct size bit. And we have a hole that's 1.5 inches. We'll turn the outside down to diameter, and then we'll just use a parting tool to part it off. That's my plan anyway. So give me a little while, and we'll see how this project comes out. Okay, there's 1/2 inch in. And there we go. Okay. I'm going to back this out, change the bit. We'll do a little bit more drilling, and then I'll come back on at the end. Okay, this is the final bit coming up. This should be our final cut, and we'll check the size once we're done here with this one. I did use the vernier calipers to check the thickness. This drill should be slightly over the size that we want. That'll give me freedom of movement, but yet not enough to where it rattles around in the shaft. So there's our bit. And again, I'm going to set the tailstock at 1/2 inch depth already. And before I do that, I'm going to turn this on slow, fill that with cutting oil. Come in here, touch it off, and we'll go ahead and start. Now what I did was, my previous cut was on one drill size smaller than this one. So we'll take this one and run it in 1.5 inches and see what happens. Okay, that is 1.5 inches. Stop that, hang up the oil, And then remove the bit, clean it up just a little bit here. Move the stock back. I like to clean stuff up as I put it back. Since I'm not really into production, I have the opportunity, and that way the next time I pull a tool out, it's ready to use and I don't have to do anything to it. Once again, this is the shaft, the rod, and that's going to work nice. That's going to reduce this play a lot. So I'll put that away for now. Okay, we got our turning tool on there, our cutting tool. I have extended the shaft about 2 inches, so we'll have plenty of room to maneuver. I'm going to double check what I need up here. And I'm going to need 5, 7. So right now I'm at 585, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to take a couple of thousandths off at a time until we get it down where we want it. So I've already touched it off. And this is just going to be a spring cut. Just a cleanup cut more than anything. And then we'll do a little bit of measuring. And part it. Finish it up by hand right to the end. Measure it one more time. I'm showing 5.735, and I do believe I wanted 5.75. So I'm a little bit under, but what I'm seeing here, it's perfectly acceptable. So let's measure the depth here. We'll lock that. I'm going to grab my parting tool, my noise making tool, and we'll mark just a little bit shallow of this max depth right here. And then what we'll do is once I mark it, we'll move it closer to the chuck so we get a cleaner cut. So Go ahead and move this down. Show me how far I can move my workpiece down. About there. See if we can get a minimum amount of chatter out of this. I am using a cheap insert. It's all I've got. But it normally does the job pretty well. You just got to get it started. Okay, make sure that my table is locked. Go ahead and take a plunge. Okay, this is the shaft that holds the mandrels on here, or the collets, I'm sorry. This is the bushing that I just made. It will go right here. I'm going to need to tap it in, which is what I wanted in the first place. And then this shaft will actually slide through it for a nice smoother fit, so that it doesn't rattle and wobble as much, and it has something nice to clean up, cinch up against. So what we're going to do, I hope none of you true machinists out there cringe, but I'm going to take this and we're going to need a little more. And no, I am not actually touching the chuck before it stops. Okay, let me zoom out again and bring you up here. See if we can't find this part that we just made. Alright, and we'll tap it in with a hammer. And I do mean tap. There we go. Now, when I tighten this up, this will be pretty well straight with very little wobble at all. And I want to think, put a washer on top of that maybe, although that does work good. I want to thank John on Double Boost. I saw he showed that he did a bushing for his mill, and I liked the idea, so I went ahead and got that idea from him. Mr. Pete and Mr. Finner for learning from you guys, as well as a bunch of other people. Thanks for your posts. If you have any questions, I might be able to answer, even though I'm an amateur. I will check my YouTube post. And any answers that I do have, I'll try to put them in my next video for you. Thank you and have a good day.